Doing a bit of a different kind of video today. I'm going to be going through some of my Saturn rarer games that I own. I started collecting Saturn, I'm going to have to say about 5 or 6 years ago when the prices were much more reasonable than they are today. The prices have like tripled since when I purchased them. It's absolutely crazy nowadays, but I'm actually planning on making a video series about this, going through a couple of my consoles. I'll probably do the Dreamcast next, because I got a decent amount of rare games for that as well, but I don't hope I sound too vain, because I got prices here. I'm going to say how much average on eBay nowadays. I don't want to sound too vain about it, but yeah. And one warning, Saturn cases are ginormous, so there's going to be really bad glare, so bear with us. We're going to start off with Albert Odyssey. This is actually a good game to start with, because it's going to set a trend that working design games on the Sega Saturn are all worth money, with the exception of about Iron Storm. But even that one's worth like 30, 40 bucks. But Albert Odyssey is a traditional RPG, JRPG. I didn't get too far in it. I played a couple hours. I remember the battles were extremely slow. But luckily, working design made it so the battles occurred less, but the enemies would give you more experience. So luckily, there's less battles as opposed to the Japanese version. Not a bad game. It's very bright and colorful, like most working design games. This game on eBay averages about 100, 120. Crazy. Next we got Bomberman. I truthfully haven't played this one too much. It's Bomberman on the Saturn. I don't think it varies itself too much from the Bombermans on like Super Nintendo or anything like that. But this game's also extremely rare nowadays. It averages about 100. Fucking crazy. Now, Burning Rangers. This is an extremely good game on the Sega Saturn. Most people believe that Sega Saturn can't really handle 3D, and truthfully speaking, they're not far from the truth. But Burning Rangers is an extremely well done 3D game. One problem with it, though, is it's extremely short. If I remember correctly, it's only about 4 or 5 levels. You get one boss at the end. The levels are fairly short, too, about 10 minutes each, so at the end of the day, you could beat this game in about 2 hours. The controls are very, very fun, though. You're able to burst through the sky, fly around and stuff. One nice thing, though, is when you beat the game, you could replay the levels, but it's kind of like a random dungeon. It will generate itself differently every time you play from there, which is nice. That game nowadays goes for about $150. Contra, Legacy of War. This is a shitty game, but it's kind of rare on the Sega Saturn. On the PlayStation 1, it's much more common. Overall, it looks awful, it doesn't play well, it's but it is rare. This is why I'm showing it. I'm going to be showing the valuable and rare ones. But I can't recommend this one. Even on the PlayStation, it's cheaper price. That goes for about 60 to 100 if you got the 3D glasses for it. Dragon Force. This is another working design game. Instead of a RPG, though, this time we have a strategy RPG. I didn't really like this one as much. You command your forces to attack other forces. And there was a lot of different varieties, like you could have dragons, archers, healers, mages. It was really nice, but one thing I hated is you yourself didn't directly fight in the battles. If you were able to actually have your general go in and like slash people and you were directly in control of it, I probably would have loved this game. It would have been much better. But as it is, it's a straight-up strategy game for the most part. Well, yeah, it's not really bad. It just wasn't really my kind of game. And that goes for about $120 on eBay. Enemy Zero is a very interesting horror game. God, I can't even remember what I was going to say about it. Was it horror? Like Resident Evil, you know, strategy, horror, whatever the fuck. You actually, just like the name says, Enemy Zero, you can't see your enemy. You go off sounds. When they're near, they'll make this loud, like, bing, bing, bing sound. And you would have to charge your gun, which took many seconds, and you would die all the time. It's a very hard, frustrating game. But I did like it somehow. I don't know, it like challenged me. It definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat, like, oh god, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Oh good, it didn't come. Oh shit, it killed me. That game is about 50 to 90. It varies a lot on that one. Guardian Heroes. I love treasure games. They're like my all-time favorite developer, and I really, really like this game. It's a RPG beat-em-up. You get to pick between, I believe it was about 4 or 6 characters you could pick from, and they were all individual, unique, had their own movesets, had their own magic. Really, really good. You could also pick between, I think it was 30 or 40 different stages, because it would go on a different path, so it had a lot of playability. The problem is the enemies and your characters were so detailed and everything, and there's so many enemies all at once, the game can't handle it, and there's extreme slowdown, which is a damn shame. Because without the slowdown, this game would be fucking amazing. I mean, it already is amazing, but with the slowdown, it definitely hurts it. I'm surprised, though. When I bought this, it's about the same price it is now on eBay. You could also pick that up on the 360, I believe, the arcade, for like $10, which is definitely the better path to go price-wise. Here we have House of the Dead. I'm sure you've heard of House of the Dead 2 on the Sega Dreamcast. This is the original arcade port of it. This version suffers from a lot of like cut stages and stuff, and truthfully I haven't played it much. One, because of an HD TV, two, because I don't have a light gun, and light guns don't work on an HD TV. I mean, there's really no point in even owning this unless you're a Saturn collector. And that goes for about roughly $120 on eBay nowadays. Now, Lunacy is definitely a rarer to find game out there. You don't see too many copies of this floating around. This is a, I don't want to say it's a point and click, because it's not really point and click if I remember properly. But it's more like Myst. It's kind of like Myst. It definitely seemed like it had an interesting story, as opposed to Myst, which didn't really interest me too much. But as myself, I haven't played it too much. I played it for about an hour before I put it down, but it's hard to come by. And that goes for about, I believe, $70 on eBay nowadays. Another working design title, Magic Knight Rayearth, something like that. This was actually, if I remember properly, is the last released Saturn game, in the US at least. It's an action RPG. It feels very similar to Zelda or Secret of Mana. It's definitely on the easier side. It's no Secret of Mana difficulty-wise. It's very bright, very colorful. It's got a lot of anime sequences if you're into that. Everything looks nice. It sounds pretty good. Overall, it's a very fun game. Not hard, but games don't have to be hard to be fun. This game goes for crazy money nowadays. I don't know why. It goes for $150 to $225. Actually, before we move on, one of the things that changes the price is the disc. As you see, you have the redhead. I don't know any of their names. But there was discs for each of these. I believe the blue-haired one is the rarest and most expensive disc. Some people care about that. Figured I'd tell you. Mega Man 8. Who hasn't played fucking Mega Man? I'm really surprised at the value of this game nowadays. Mega Man 8, you could easily find it on the PlayStation 1. I'm sure that's where most people have played it. It's very easy to find on the PS1, and you could also play it on the Mega Man collections on PS2, GameCube, Xbox. Two unique things about the Saturn version, though, that's not on any other version, is you get to fight Woodman and Cutman. They're unique mini-bosses. Also, it comes with a little art gallery on the disc, with a couple little pictures. It's not really that great, but the two extra bosses are pretty cool. But this game goes for about $170 to $200. Fucking, I don't know why it's that much. If it was a Saturn exclusive, I could understand the price, but as it stands, that's what it's worth. And then there's X4. I really like this version over the PlayStation version because the Sega Saturn controller works so good with the dashing and the jumping and the attacking. The PlayStation 1 controller is a bit clunkier in that regard, so I really like this version, especially if you play Zero. The controls are like fucking butter. Fucking fabulous. And I would love to recommend it, but at the price, it goes for about over $100 right now. I can't recommend it. Years ago I would, because it was only like $20-40, but nowadays I can't recommend it at that price. Now, Mortal Kombat Trilogy truthfully isn't the most valuable game by far on the Saturn, but it's kind of hard to find, and I figured I'd just throw it out here. I'm not really a Mortal Kombat fan myself. Actually, when it comes to fighters, I just like Smash Brothers and like Capcom versus Marvel 2. I suck at fighters, but this is more of a rare game. It goes for about $30 to $50 on average. Here we have the big one. I'm sure if you are a bit of a Saturn collector, you've probably heard of this one. Or if you're a Saturn collector, you probably have at least played Panzer Dragoon 1 or 2. Panzer Dragoon 2 is actually an extremely well done 3D game. I really like it as an on-rail game. Panzer Dragoon Saga takes it in a bit of a different direction. We're now in a on-rail RPG. It's very unique, and I can't really think of any other RPG that's like this, which is great. It's a bit of a short game. I believe I beat it in, I want to say 20 hours. Maybe less. I can't really remember exactly. Overall, it was a really fun game. I enjoyed it. Very few of them are out there, unfortunately. As far as RPGs goes, this is probably the best one on the Saturn. And unfortunately, this game goes for between $300 and $400. I can't recommend any game at that price. This one isn't exactly rare or valuable, but I just want to mention because not too many people really know that Resident Evil was on the Saturn. Because most people have played the PlayStation version, or the PlayStation Director's Cut one, which is a little better. You get to use the analog sticks and it has extra content. But I just wanted to show it. It is on the Saturn. It's like 30 to 50 bucks, but even I forget it's on the Saturn. And I like the controls of it more. Shining Force 3. If you've played the other Shining Force games, you'll probably like this one, but it's slower than the Sega Genesis counterpart ones. Overall, it is a fun game. The graphics, they could use some work. They're not the worst Saturn graphics. They're not like Blazing Heroes, which had ugly graphics. Blazing Heroes was an awful strategy RPG. It was so slow, ugly. But Shining Force 3 overall is a pretty fun game. I played it for a couple hours. I definitely prefer the Sega Genesis ones, 1 or 2. Pretty fun game. It now goes for $100 to $170. Shining the Holy Ark. This isn't really like the other Shining games. This is a dungeon crawler. A first-person dungeon crawler. I'm not really a fan of that genre myself, so I can't really tell you if it was good or not. I didn't play it very long. This goes for about $70 now, though. I think when I bought it, it was like $20. Prices have changed so much, it's fucking ridiculous. Shining Wisdom, another working design game. No surprise there. I actually really like this one. It's an action RPG, very more similar to Zelda than Magic Knight Rayearth was. It's been so long since I played this, but I remember I really, really enjoyed it. The graphics were they kind of look like Legos or Wibble Wobbles. But I remember it was a really fun game, and you could win $10,000, which would really help in affording the game. It's fucking expensive. Overall, I really liked this. It's actually one of my more favorite working design games on the Saturn. And this goes between, what we got? 75 to 120. Sonic Jam. This is a combination of Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic & Knuckles. So you pretty much have all the Sega Genesis games on the Saturn. And along with that, you also have a unique 3D world for Sonic to explore, which it was mostly just like time challenges or collect all these rings. It wasn't too exciting. The emulation's very poor. The sound was off. The controls didn't feel quite right. I can't really recommend this game, even for the 3D world part. I mean, you could unlock like videos and stuff about like older promotional stuff, which is kind of cool, but as it stands, I really can't recommend this, especially at the going price of $50 to $90. Winning Post. God, I never thought I'd talk about this kind of game. This is a horse racing simulator. You raise your horse and you let it to race. I can't believe this is a rare game, but not many of these games were produced, and they are very, very, very valuable nowadays. I didn't play it for long, but surprisingly, it reminded me of Monster Rancher. Go figure. Yeah, I can't really talk about it too much due to that, but the going price of this is about $70 to $100. And not exactly valuable as the other ones, but Christmas Nights is a unique demo disc of the first level of Nights into Dreams. It's all Christmas-based, same bosses and everything, but it's very cheerful, and as far as Christmas games go, you can't find any. But another nice thing about this is, despite it being a demo, it had a lot of unlockable stuff. You can unlock a lot of pictures, videos. Every time you would play through the one level, you would gain a couple presents, which would unlock these extra stuff. It's kind of nice having that extra playability in a game. This goes for about $20 to $30. Not super rare, but for a demo disc, it's kind of uncommon for it to go that high. We're going to move on to Sega Saturn imports now. I don't have too much. It's mostly just shooters and fighters at this point. Batsugan. I can't believe how much this goes for nowadays. I originally paid about $40 or $50 for this, and it goes between $130 and $180 as of prices nowadays. It's a pretty good shooter and all. It feels kind of like a cave game. You have your shots are pretty big. It's very, you feel powerful when you play it, even though the enemies still are strong. It's a fun game. I really liked it, but not at that price. Same goes for Battle Garega. Really, really solid shooter right here. I really recommend playing it, like on an emulator or something. Very solid. It's very hard. I cannot beat this game. This is one shoot 'em up I have not been able to beat at all. I've gotten to the final stage, and I cannot get past it. It's got a very unique ranking system, which keeps track of like how many shots you fired, how many bombs you used, and this will make the enemies more powerful. It's very hard. I mean, hell, to look up the score system on this, it's like crazy. But this goes between an insane 150 to 220. Dungeons and Dragons Collection. Nice thing about this is it's actually 2 games. You have 2 separate discs, and they're each their own unique game. Was it Shadow over Mysteria and Temple of something, I believe the other one was called. It's all in Japanese, so I can't read it. But this is a beat 'em up. I believe it had RPG elements. I believe you leveled up. I can't remember exactly. This used to be an arcade game that Capcom made. Overall, it was a really fun game. The language barrier did get in the way a little bit when it comes to the sub items. Like I couldn't know if I was throwing a dagger or a magic book. I was like, okay, just hope for the best. But overall, it was a really, really fun game. And unlike Guardian Heroes, there's really not too much slowdown, which is fucking great. 'Cause who wants slowdown? This goes between, if you have the bigger box version, it's worth about, I think, $100. What did I write down? Yeah, the big box one's about $100. This one's worth about $70. And here's another big one. Radiant Silver Gun. My god. This is easily one of the best shoot 'em ups ever made. It's unique and different from most other shoot 'em ups. You actually leveled up your weapons. It's kind of like an RPG shooter puzzle game. Fucking crazy. I love this game. And I'm going to try not to just keep saying I love it, but it's very unique. You get to level up your weapons based on your score, so score is essential to beating this game. Really, really fun. It's long, too. This is the longest shoot 'em up I think ever. It will take you about a little over an hour to beat the whole game all in one sitting, which is crazy for shooters. Shooters normally take 20, 30 minutes. It has so many bosses. They're all varied. Everything is fabulous. I think I paid about $120, which is far beyond what I normally spend on any game. And that's roughly the going price nowadays. It goes for about $120, $170. This is one of the few games I do recommend buying at that price. Seriously, if you like shooters, you need to play that game. Luckily, it's also on the Xbox Live Arcade for about $10. Much more affordable. But you don't get the Sega Saturn controller then, and that's the only way to play. Street Fighter 03. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the other Street Fighter alphas released on the Saturn, but I picked this one up years and years ago, because it's probably the best of the bunch. You get the most characters and all. I really like this game, even though I suck at fighters, as I mentioned, so I can never beat like Akuma at the end. But I really like it. It's a fun game, lots of characters, lots of modes to pick from. Highly recommended, except at the price, which is, oh my god, $100 to $170. Fucking insane. Thunder Force 5. God, it's a bit of a mess, I'll be honest. This is very pixely, very blocky. For a shooter, you really can't tell what's coming at you, which really hurts the experience. I don't really recommend it. You can get it slightly cheaper on the PlayStation domestically, but even then, I don't know. And that goes for about $50 or $80. So, I mean, I hope that was entertaining. I hope you learned something. Hopefully you have a couple of these games in your collection you didn't know about, and you're like, oh my god, I'm rich. I really hope that for you. But, yeah, I mean, do you want me to keep doing videos like this? Do you not want me to tell you the price? Is that too vain of me? I hope not. I mean, I paid about a third to a quarter of what they're worth now. I mean, I would not pay these prices for video games. Not for a video game, at least. You could buy, like, computers and shit for this kind of money, but, yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, so, peace out.